All right, I'd like to call this special meeting of the Common Council to order at 7:36 p.m. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll? 6:36.
Thank you. All the persons trueworthy.
Here.
Magnashevsky.
Here.
Black.
Present.
Collins. Here. Claytosh.
Here.
Sanchez. Carlozzi.
Here.
DeFranzo.
Here.
Salvio.
Here.
Cabone.
Here.
Giantonio.
Here.
Smedley.
Here.
Salerno.
Here.
Naples.
Here.
Walensky.
Here.
14 present, Your Honor. You have a quorum.
Mr. Clerk, will you please read the warrant?
Yes, Your Honor. Mayor's warrant to the clerk of the...
Your Honor. I'd
Alderman
like to make a
Drury.
motion to waive the reading of the warrant.
Second, Your Honor. Seconded by Alderwoman Belinsky. All those in favor of waiving signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to allow for the mayor to make a presentation.
Seconded by Alderman Carlozzi. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. I will go.
People can sit where they will as they want, and as the mayor will make a presentation to the council.
Good luck. Son of the Holy Spirit, amen.
All right. Am I on with this thing? Hello. Can everybody hear me? Excuse me while I organize myself. I'm not very excited about doing this. Okay, I don't know if anybody's done this before, if any mayor has done something like this before, but I felt it appropriate to give a PowerPoint presentation to everybody to kind of explain how I got to where I am and what my proposal entails, and hopefully it'll make it easier for all of us moving forward as we continue with the budget process. For those in the audience, those are all your names, because I just wanted to include you in there. I have to start by thanking the Board of Finance, who really helped give a solid groundwork for where this budget goes. I took a lot of what they did and built upon that. My budget team, which I have worked tirelessly with over the last month or so, I have to give Becky Salerni a lot of credit. Her and I have become very close, and Jonathan as well. But this process encompassed a lot of other different people too, and I'd like to think I did a good job at including all of our department heads and also all of our union presidents and our employees too in this process. The employees definitely had some wonderful suggestions. I collaborated a lot with the union presidents of all of our unions to come together to help find solutions for the problems that our city is in. And this is where we came up with. So, no secret to everybody, we've got a $19 million deficit that we're facing in this current year, and a projected $33 million deficit into next year. So this is my budget for those in the audience going into next year for fiscal year 2015. We're not addressing that $19 million deficit tonight. We have a critical shortage of cash, and we're staring directly in the face at a bond rating downgrade. How did we get here? It's the elephant in the room. Our government didn't ask tough questions and didn't make tough choices over the last 20-so years. Our leadership refused to acknowledge that expenditures can't increase while revenues remain flat. We can't do all things for all people without accounting for those costs. We've got to cut the line somewhere. There's no more freebies and no more exceptions. We've all governed too much with an eye towards the next election and not towards what's going to get us to where we need to be for a stable and responsible future. That's the elephant in the room. And over the last 2 years, as I went through this budget, there was unbalance. It was fictitious revenues that were way overinflated. It was a reliance on one-timers, and that's not good because you don't have those one-times in the following year. There was a combination of general fund and special revenue fund monies. We have massive debt, and the reorganization of City Hall, while it looked good on paper, certainly looks great on paper, it just doesn't work when you're in the building every day in the way that it was just structured. It wasn't, I don't think it's healthy for many people in this building. So you know, my vision. I've talked about this numerous times, restoring the pride. This is my little political spin on everything. Haha, yeah. But being transparent and better enabling New Britain to be open for business, but most importantly, being fiscally responsible. What I'm putting forward to you tonight is not the budget that I want, but I truly believe that it's the budget New Britain needs. It's best to learn from those who are in their fields rather than making those decisions in a vacuum. So I've talked about this again, meeting with all the department heads at length. Some of them dread when they hear me calling. Now I'm sure either that or Becky, they don't want to talk to her anymore either. But it's the best team approach to determine where cuts can be made and how we can get there. We adopted a zero-based budget approach, so we built from the bottom up. That means we started at zero, not taking anything for granted, not including any positions. We literally built as we saw fit. Meetings with union presidents, and my mentality that I took with this process was to reduce spending first and increase revenues last. This is the timeline that we were working off of. I got the Board of Finance budget on the 13th. Here I am to you today, meeting this April 9th deadline, and then we will come back here, I'm sure amongst long debates and budget transfers and so until June 6th. What were our challenges? Cost of city services, driven up by contracts and state mandates, unfunded state mandates, increasing cost of energy and utilities, maintaining an aging infrastructure. Our health insurance costs have increased so much over the last 5 years, it's scary. But also, in addition to that, rising pension costs, the cost of contract settlements as our tax base continues to shrink. And there's political pressures to keep that mill rate stable. Oh, this is where I tried to get fancy and put, you know. So the department heads put in their budget request, and what they came to me was kind of, you know, the wish list, everything that they would like to see. That would be a 9.2% increase. So the mill rate would go up to 65.39, an increase of 21.27 mils. That would equate to what I want to say like $2,500 a homeowner, a taxpayer. The Board of Finance took that budget and cut that down to a 3.5% increase. I should note that the Board of Finance is limited in their options. The Board of Finance cannot institute policy changes. So they take, where's Mary Morocco? She can account for that. So they really cut the fat. So my budget, what I'm proposing to you tonight, is an 8.9% decrease from the fiscal year 2014 budget. So what does cutting first mean? It means eliminating 28 positions. It means maximizing your grant funds. So if we use grant funds to pay for positions, when the grant runs out, so do those jobs. We can't continue to retain them. Union suggestions, I can't say that enough. I'm really grateful. I'm really thankful that they worked with me on this and with the finance team. There is a line item in my budget to reduce $1.2 million in the fire department in salaries, and that is off the promise from the fire union to find that $1.2 million in reductions to avoid layoffs and to avoid closing a fire station. We did this at the March 12th council meeting. That was our debt service restructuring. It is a one-time revenue. I will tell you that one right up front. Everybody knows that. But it's over 10 years to provide that stability in our credit restructuring. So the total overall reduction in the city's budget and what I'm proposing to you tonight is $16.3 million. 10.7 coming from general government. That's the people in this building, our insurance, our pension liabilities, recreation and community services, public works, not filling vacant positions. And there is an increase, and you will see it in public safety. And that was due to the federal grant that we got for maintaining those stable staffing levels, and that increase from officers from last year and this year to meet that requirement so we can offset the salaries. The increase, what you're seeing, is mostly in pension and insurance obligations. There is a line item in my budget for what I'm calling the Encore program. Shout out to 818 for providing with this suggestion. So I'm working on creating the guidelines for this now. So employees who are eligible to retire can do so, but I'd like to give them the flexibility to be able to return for 19.5 hours a week for a set period of, I put XX months because I haven't really decided what that will be yet. but it's an ability to have someone ease into retirement while a city is able to retain knowledge and train their successors. But by no mistake, this isn't a golden handshake for anybody. This is to make life a little bit easier for us and to transition into retirement a little bit easier for them. And you know, I also don't think it's a secret that City Hall has an aging workforce, and I think that there are quite a few people that will take advantage of this program. Fancy charts, if you want to see, you know, in a graph how this reduction looks from last year compared to this year. General fund appropriations and a breakdown of what goes towards education, public safety, general government, public works, and recreation and community services. You will see in that slide, there looks like there's a reduction in the education bar there. And this is something that we need to correct. It's a reporting error, so I don't want anybody to freak out and think that I'm cutting money from education. So Governor Malloy gave us those one-time supplemental ECS grants in aid. It was over 2 years for last year and for this year, but in addition to that, our district also received the Alliance grant funding because they chose to put De Loretto in the Commissioner's Network, and monies are automatically given to the 30 lowest performing districts in the state. Well, some of that additional money was mistakenly put into a general fund, not into an ECS grant fund where it belonged. So the district is also set to receive additional funding from the state again this year. So even though I'm taking that out, it'll still even out in the long run. This is the easy part. Oh, I should say that East Hartford, Bridgeport, and other municipalities are also dealing with that same ECS issue. So the revenue increases are the easy part. Okay, it's got to be done in amounts that can actually be realized. So my budget accounts for increases in parking fees, permitting inspection, parks and recreation program fees, public works increases, and I want to work with the council to see that all these are implemented in short order because we're far behind our comparable cities and towns with this fee schedule. But even though you increase all these, it's still not enough to offset the $33 million deficit that we're looking in the face. So after doing all that and cutting all those things, my last resort is a tax increase. Hopefully it's everybody's last resort. But I should highlight what this budget doesn't do. If I took an average City Hall employee, $60K a year with benefits, and multiplied that out to make up that $33 million deficit, city government, we'd lay off 507 people to make that up. We only employ about 575 plus. So if we can operate City Hall with, 50, 60 some odd people, somebody tell me how that works. The other options that I had on the table to make up that $33 million were to discontinue trash pickup, no more picking up your leaves, get rid of parks and recreation, get rid of community services, close a fire station and reduce that workforce, reduce their police force. We could have sold the senior center, reduced government employees, sell the water department, Stanley Golf Course, Fairview Cemetery. There's so many things that we could have done, but I didn't want to. But if anybody of you, council wants to, it's in your hands now, feel free. So I tried my best to avoid that and share the burden across the board. I should state while I'm on that, there was a reason why I didn't do those things and why I tried to share as much of the pain equally as possible. And I guess I want to use the town of New London as a good example. They weren't willing to make these decisions. They weren't willing to do that. And their mayor gave up. Their city government failed them. The mayor's not running for re-election. He said he's moving back to Rhode Island. They're looking in the face of a state takeover. Their government failed them because they were too afraid to make the tough decisions. And I refuse to let that be us. And leading by example, I should state that I did eliminate position from the mayor's office that will actually take effect this fiscal year, and it will be out of the budget for next year as well. I'll be backfilling that load of work with volunteers and interns from CCSU. This is the estimated revenues. You'll see the increase in taxes, the state aid, the fines and fees portion is probably something I should talk about a little bit. I look at that fines and fees area as bringing it back to reality. So even with those increases in fees that I talked about, back to reality means a reduction by $26.8 million in the fines and fees tab in the budget into what we can actually realize. So here's the mill rate computation. My total budget, $216.2 million. There's our grand list, and the mill rate increase that would need to correct the deficit is 4.8, along with the other suggestions that I'm providing you with tonight. So the average homeowner, average home's assessed at $138,000. The average homeowner will pay about $56 a month, or about $670 a year under my proposal tonight. This is just the mill rate by function. It goes to show how much goes to education, general government, public safety, works, recreation, and community services. I wanted to pull out and talk about the special revenue funds because in my budget, I pulled those special revenue funds out of the general fund and put them back into the salaries back into the special revenue funds where I believe that they belong. Some special revenue fund highlights in the sewer fund. The Mattabasset Capital Improvement Project, that cost will be passed down to us this year as well, and there's about this much that we can do about it. I am charging the salaries directly to that fund. Same with the Medical Self-Insurance Fund. Estimates for 2015 came in lower than originally estimated because of new claim trends. I found that one out the other day, so that was like, hey, okay. The Water Fund, charging salaries directly to there. Same thing with Stanley Golf Course, Fairview Cemetery. And in the Workers' Compensation Fund, too, there is no general fund contribution here in 14 or 15 because of the reduced reserve. And I also have Corporation Counsel will be implementing a new process to reduce the amount of money that's needed in this fund. Seth was handling all of our workers' comp stuff. He's no longer with us and in greater pastures, so we won't be filling his position, but we'll be looking to find somebody else to take that on. Not a city employee. That's what I meant by that. Bonding update. Our debt in 2012, 2013, and 2014 now, what we're looking at, $197.6 million in bonded debt, equating to 81.82 mils. So I thought this would be a neat thing for us to see, that if we issued a supplemental tax bill to pay off all of our credit cards, each taxpayer would have to pay $11,291 to get us out of that hole that we're in. Of course, we're not going to do that, but I just thought it would be a good comparison. Capital project update. Myself and the council worked together to rescind or reduce the funding for 12 approved capital projects with that $19.6 million reduction. And then what they bonded in 2013, and moving forward, we'll continue to do some housekeeping as we're assessing some of the old projects that we have on the books, and we'll be rescinding and closing out those. We're targeting another $500,000 in further reductions moving on down the road. This is the most interesting one, at least I think. I know it's probably tough to see here, but the budget that I put together views City Hall such as this. And this is somewhat reorganization of the reorganization, if you will, which has quite some interesting pieces to it. Elected officials are elected officials. They don't have a boss, except for me, of course. So they belong on lines on their own. Currently, they're working underneath somebody else, and that's not why people elect them. They elect them to do their job, not to have somebody telling them what to do. Corporation Counsel's office will now house personnel. It will also house CHRO. Police, fire, and public safety remain the same. Public Works changes a little bit, and I branched out Bill DeMayo, and I'm creating him as the department head of recreation and the community services division. Underneath him will be community services, recreation, and the senior center. Finance becomes its own area with revenue collection, assessor, IT, and the finance department underneath it. Sergio Lupo branches out as the building and health department head, and DMD, which basically pays for itself. So that's what I am envisioning in this proposal. Going with the theme of stability and responsibility, this is a structurally balanced budget. There's no gimmicks, but I truly believe that it gives us stability to strengthen our city, to make us more attractive to businesses in the long run, but it doesn't ignore the realities that we face. There's an interesting piece of this, I'm sure you all know, is I didn't put any money in the sale of city property. There's a zero in that. And there's a reason for it, and that's because I didn't feel that we could rely on that not knowing. So I tried my best to do what I could without throwing, $5 million in there to help offset. There are more cuts in this budget than tax increases, and I am fully prepared to answer to the 73,000 people that will not be happy with me tomorrow. But I firmly believe that it's about doing what's right and not what's popular, because I will not give up on the city, I won't give up on our government, and I'm going to make sure that we're going to do what we can to get us where we need to be. But I should state that any budget is a working document. This is just my proposal to the Common Council. It's all subject to change. I'll continue to work with them and start the conversation moving forward. Budgets are meant to be, educated guesses, I suppose, based on prior year's actual and coming year projections. But I'm more than confident that it's the start to stability and responsibility. And while I stand here tonight knowing that I am certainly putting myself out on a limb by doing this, by proposing this, I can go to bed tonight knowing that I'm doing what's right for the people of this community, and I look forward to working with the council to accomplish that. Thank you. With that being said, I'd like to call the meeting back to order at 6:59.